Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 1987 Supermod. I'm Brad Drake, and this is Championship Wrestling from Florida. I know, all of you are probably going, what the heck is going on here? I want my AWA, and you'll still get your AWA. We're just changing things up a little bit here, and we're also going to start running a Championship Wrestling from Florida save. So, it is Monday, the first week of May, 1987, and let's take a look at the situation of Championship Wrestling from Florida here. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Championship Wrestling from Florida was a very thriving territory for decades under the tutelage of Eddie Graham. And Eddie Graham also had some very talented people with him, such as Hiro Matsuda and others, and he really trained and turned out dozens and dozens of really good wrestlers, and he had a thriving business. Florida apparently was the place you wanted to work. If you talk to or listen to any of the shoot interviews from the Briscoe brothers, from the Funk brothers, and the list goes on and on. Brian Blair, Don Morocco, Dusty Rhodes, especially the Wyndhams. If you hear any of them talk, they talk about how well run and how terrific Championship Wrestling from Florida was and how great of a territory it was to wrestle in. So, what happened to Championship Wrestling from Florida? Why did it die off? And why did it die the death that it died? Well, history shows us that after the death of Eddie Graham, who committed suicide in, I believe, 1986, it may have been 1985, his son and Graham's former business partners took over the business. Championship Wrestling from Florida was already in a little bit of trouble because the talent was being raided by the WWF. Paul Orndorff and several others took off from Championship Wrestling from Florida and went to the World Wrestling Federation, including Brian Blair and others. And on the same token, Dusty Rhodes had left years before, and he had been the biggest star in Florida. So at the time of Eddie Graham's death, Championship Wrestling from Florida was already in some trouble. And then when the time after Eddie Graham's death, things just took a spiral. In 1987, Jim Crockett Promotions purchased Championship Wrestling from Florida and kept it alive for a while before eventually closing it down. And I can't remember if they shut it down in May or like November. I think it was November or December. They shut it down about the same time they shut down the UWF. Of course, the UWF shut down after Starrcade in 1987. So that was it. They had promised Mike Graham, allegedly, and others that were former owners that they were going to keep Championship Wrestling from Florida around. They were going to use it as another territory to send their talent. This is before they called things developmental promotions, and it just didn't turn out that way. Crockett ended up shutting it down, and that was it. Championship Wrestling from Florida was history. So if we take a look at our roster here with CWF in May 1987, and this is the roster. I went through this roster with a fine-tooth comb and made this as realistic as possible. Now, here's the other cool thing, folks. You're witnessing version 8.0 here, too. So everything's updated, everything's good. So if you take a look at wrestlers from Crockett that are in Jim Crockett wrestlers that are in CWF that are from Crockett, you have Dusty Rhodes started making appearances again. Okay, you had Bill Dundee that was down there, and he was continuing to manage Basher and Spike as he did in Jim Crockett Promotions. The Barbarian was doing shots down there. Wahoo McDaniel, another huge Florida star in the 70s and 80s, was doing shots down there. Ron Bass, both Barry Windham and his brother Kendall were also doing shots down there. Kendall was working there full time. At this point in time, he was injured. Jimmy Valiant was doing shots down there. Jimmy Garvin was doing shows. Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy. So Scott Hall was down there at the time, but Scott Hall wasn't part of the Jim Crockett Promotions roster at the time. And Ron Bass was finishing up here, even though he was already with the WWF. So that's the status of Championship Wrestling from Florida in May 1987. They had some super talents down here. You know what, folks? I'm sorry. I'm forgetting some of the biggest names here. Rick Steiner and Sting are down here. They came over from the UWF and they put them in Championship Wrestling from Florida. As a matter of fact, since Crockett owned UWF already since March, I think they were doing double duty. T.J. Khan was in Championship Wrestling from Florida via Crockett, but there was some serious talent here in Championship Wrestling from Florida at this time. Of course, Manny Fernandez also. How can I forget Lex Luger? Kevin Sullivan was still down in Florida at the time. The roster was just stacked. So you have to ask, why didn't it work? Well, you can ask 10 people and they'll tell you 10 different things. According to Brian Blair, after Eddie Graham died, there just wasn't the organization anymore. And then when Crockett bought it, Crockett didn't really care what was going on. He had no intentions of keeping it as a thriving company. So in the game here, if you choose to play Championship Wrestling from Florida like I am, we are actually the child company of Crockett. They own us. So they're paying all our talent. We show nothing for talent. Okay? The actual schedule is loaded. This was the real 1987 schedule for Championship Wrestling from Florida. We are going to clear out this schedule. And I am going to do a custom schedule because I am going to make Championship Wrestling from Florida a thriving company again. And it's just not going to be able to be done with this schedule. Number one, we won't be able to get the talent we need from Crockett. And number two, I understand this is how they did it, but this is also why Crockett shut them down. So we are going to change this up and we're going to do it right. And we're going to make the proper changes. Gordon Soley hosts our show for us. He's a one-man show, of course, and he does a fine job. Let's take a look at our tag teams. And here we go. Mike Graham and Steve Kern were the million-time tag team champions down there in Florida. You can see all the retired titles are in here that are new for version 8. All these titles have been added, okay? That was the face tag team. Rotunda and Simmons was another face tag team. Mike Rotunda was the Florida heavyweight champion at this time. Sting and Rick Steiner were tagging together in Florida like they were in UWF, and they are a heel team. The Cuban Connection, which was fun, researching these two and putting them together and getting their pictures off of actual television shows. It's Fidel Sierra and it's Ricky Assassin. Fidel Sierra wrestled as the assassin or the Cuban assassin in Portland for years. And actually, he still worked for Portland at this time too, but he was doing shots for Florida. The Fabulous Freebirds are a heel tag team. The Mighty Yankees are Jerry Graham and Bob Cook. I don't think too much of them. The Mod Squad is down here, still being managed by Bill Dundee. The Mulkey brothers are even doing shots in Florida and putting people down. The New Breed is down here, Sean Royal and Chris Champion. You remember them when they made their Crockett appearance. And then the Sheepherders are in Florida at the time here. So it's cool stuff. We got a hot roster here. We got a lot of potential here. And at this point in time, Florida was down to having 2 titles. And they had the tag team title and they had the heavyweight title. We already went over the champions. We can take a look at our retired belts here. And you'll see that I put all of them into the game. So all the Florida retired titles are now in the game. Folks, you're looking at dozens and dozens and dozens of hours to do all these titles, but they are all in the game. The Florida Global Tag title is in there. The Florida version of the U.S. Tag title is in there. Florida Women's title. The North American Tag Team title, that was the Florida version, is in there. All these titles have been added. So let me show you something here. Before, if you played this game and you looked up Eddie Graham, who was deceased, Eddie Graham would only have like a couple titles under his name. And that's been rectified. So here's Eddie Graham. You can take a look at his title history here and see all the titles that have been put in. Folks, I added dozens of titles to this game. Dozens. There's the Florida version of the World Tag Team title. There is the Amarillo version of the World Tag Team title. All of these have been added in. Painstaking process for any of you that did that, have ever added titles to the game. Let's take a look at Fritz von Erich. Turn that stupid thing off. Fritz von Erich is a perfect example of all the heavyweight titles that have been put in. If you remember in the former versions, you had the world-class world heavyweight title was just the world-class world heavyweight title. I split it. Okay, so you can see that there was a difference. Fritz von Erich never held the world-class world heavyweight title. Fritz von Erich held the NWA American Heavyweight title, which was the main event title of the world-class promotion, also known as Big Time Wrestling. So that split was made, so you can accurately see the titles that he held here. Okay, there's also the Texas version of the Brass Knuckles title. That was added. The International Tag Team was added. Actually, that's the one in Japan. That one was in there already. The North American Heavyweight title, the Texas version, has been added. Okay, see that? The World Tag Team title, Minnesota version, has been added. The Texas version has been added. That's different than the Amarillo version. So really his only world-class title was the six-man tag title with his sons. So all these cool titles that were not in the game have been added. Vern Gagne is another one that held a bunch of titles all over. If you had looked at Vern Gagne before, only his AWA stuff was listed and the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title. You can see he held NWA World Tag titles with different wrestlers. So this is the cool thing about version 8, is you get all those old titles in there. Most of them are listed under, if they're defunct promotions, they're listed under the NWA as retired titles under the Alliance. So you can go ahead and activate those again if you want before you launch your save. It's up to you. It'll be in the database. Alliances, okay. The AWA, the CWA, and World Class were in an alliance at this time, whether people want to recognize it or not. They were trading talent. They were reliant on each other to survive at this point due to their talent exchanges. That's also why they did the Super Clash pay-per-views together. So they have been added as a formal alliance now when you start playing 1987. Okay, obviously they were Pro Wrestling USA before when they also had the UWF and Crockett with them, but that ended after Super Clash. So they are their own alliance now in this game. Also, some updates here to the NWA alliance. All-Star Pro Wrestling out of New Zealand has been added, and so has the West 4 Wrestling Alliance. So you're probably asking, who are these promotions at the time? All-Star Pro Wrestling was a big-time, I mean big-time, wrestling promotion out of New Zealand, run by Steve Rickard. And he had this great television show called On the Mat that ran for like 13 years. And it was a huge TV show, wrestling TV show. I mean, big time. It was a half-hour show that was run in New Zealand. And eventually, at the end, it got too expensive for Ricard to run. That happened in 1984. So he lost his television show in 1984. However, he still was doing sporadic shows here and there. So this is the remnants of the All-Star Pro Wrestling. The 2 titles that the promotion had are still active, but they are, they got a vacancy here, and the other belt's been held since 1985. So they will run 4 shows a year, being realistic. Their TV show is still active. It's just going to see if they can get another contract for it. So again, cool stuff to see. I also added all their old titles in there. And actually, I will edit that because I think their tag title is still under the NWA. So I'll get that edited. We'll get that fixed. Okay. And while I'm looking around here, if I see anything that's strange, I'll fix it again before we actually start running our show here. The West 4 Wrestling Alliance was a really cool independent promotion that ran out of Manitoba in Canada. So I went ahead and added them. I added their roster, as you can see, which involved creating new wrestlers. Same thing as the All-Star Pro Wrestling that we looked at. Their titles have been added. That scared me for a second. It was still on retired. And actually, they had vacancies in all their titles at this time. So they even had an actual wrestling show going, NWA. It was called West 4 Wrestling Alliance Presents NWA Wrestling. So pretty cool stuff. So that's been added. Their tours have been added. All their relationships with other promotions have been added. So all this stuff is new to version 8. I don't think you're going to find another mod out there with this level of detail. And it is detailed, my friends. So I already started working on a spreadsheet here for Florida. All of our wrestlers are plugged in already. Okay, the tag teams are plugged in. We'll go after enhancement talent. I was playing a beta version of this before, so I'll go ahead and clean all that up for enhancement talent. And then, as you can tell, it's the same the same spreadsheet I use for AWA. But we'll get this fixed up, and we'll have this all set for Florida. Okay, so this is pretty exciting stuff, and it's going to be cool and fun to do another promotion here, do another save, and especially to show off version 8. Like I said, there was just a ton of work that went into version 8, and you're going to see so many things cleaned up and fixed, and just so much fun stuff that's in the game. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back again, and we'll start our Florida save. So this is just a little insight into the Florida save, so you get to see it, and you get to see what's going on in it. And I hope those of you that are going to download it and play it, I hope you enjoy version 8. And I hope you enjoy what's coming here with the Championship Wrestling from Florida save. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, to this episode. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back in action again. If you want version 8 and it hasn't been emailed to you already, go to braddrake.net, drop me a line, and I'll be more than happy to send you over the link to our Google Drive page where you can download the picture pack and the database. Next, join us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/1987supermod, and join us in conversation about the Supermod. More and more people are playing it every day. And last but not least, folks, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share this video with your friends. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.